Hello and welcome to another episode of It Came From the Page. And I know it's Tuesday, but I am not doing a tag. I am going to actually do the video I was going to plan to do on Friday. So basically, you won't be getting a Friday video this week. I've kind of got into the habit of doing Fridays and Tuesdays as my uploads. Never really officially declared that as the schedule, but I thought that'd be good to do maybe 2 videos a week just for now, and then the odd video here or there. But this Friday is my birthday weekend, so I'm turning 30 on the 16th. So my father is coming into town, and we're kind of going through a whole bunch of bookstores and doing this big shopping spree bonanza for the 30th birthday, and going to all these bookstores that I've never been to before in other towns and cities nearby. So I will be definitely making a vlog of that and talking about my hauls if I find anything. Who knows? I have 4 or 5 bookstores that are outside of my normal area. Maybe they're all terrible. Maybe I won't find anything. But I'm optimistic that I will find some cool stuff, because one of them I have been to before and I found quite a bit of good stuff there. So instead of doing a tag, because I was tagged in a few tags. Oh, Michael K. Vaughn tagged me in the cat tag, and as somebody, the dog tag, but changed it to the cat tag. But I have 4 cats, and one of those tags is coming up with names for an acronym and all the book names for all of the cats. And let me tell you, that's hell, because some of those cats' names are very long and very weird. So maybe I will do that in 2 weeks, because like I said, next week I will have the vlog go up on Tuesday that I record on the weekend. And today and on Friday there won't be anything. So the point of today's video is that I am going to do something I haven't done in a while, which is just talk about 2 books. I talked about and was doing this very early on in my channel, where I take 2 books and kind of do a compare and contrast and just kind of discuss some stuff about the 2 books that seem to have a similar theme, or at least some similar connections I can make. As far as I know, I may have only done one of these, in which I reviewed Robert R. McCammon's Stinger and Stephen King's Tommyknockers, and talked about both of those and kind of compared those. Today, I am talking about Harry Adam Knight's Carnosaur and R. Karl Largent's The Lake. Now, at first glance, you might be like, what do these things have in common? And the main connecting tissue is Spielberg. Now, this predates Jurassic Park. So Carnosaur predates Jurassic Park. But this particular version that I have in front of me, this was the media tie-in release set to coincide with the new video release of the ripoff of Jurassic Park by Roger Corman, the Schlockmeister. So this is actually the Roger Corman cover of Carnosaur. Now, this is being reissued. I will tell you whether or not you should pick this up in a second. But yeah, so this is before Jurassic Park. There are a few similarities to Jurassic Park. Not as many as people would have you believe. Just because they clone dinosaurs and they have a zoo, it ends there. They're not that similar. So I don't think that people need to be as Carnosaur did it all before. But we'll get to that. So this predates Jurassic Park. Has some similar elements to Jurassic Park, and a movie version of it, which is almost completely unrelated to the actual book itself, was released to rip off and coincide with the hype being set around the release of Jurassic Park. Now, R. Karl Largent's The Lake is very, very much in the tradition of Jaws. From point 1, you can tell that the cover is here, that has the iconic cover image of Jaws is basically recreated in this looks like there's some kind of a giant fish attacking people. Now, we will get to some information about this book. Now, this book is not what it appears to be, but it is still very much focused on a ripoff of Jaws, and more of a kind of a bait and switch. Less ripoff and more bait and switch, more that it's kind of to let you think that you're going into Jaws, and then it kind of flips the script a little bit. Carnosaur is exactly what has on, on its thing. So both of these are, Spielberg adjacent properties, And let me tell you, there's some other really interesting comparisons to have with them too. So before I get into the individual talking about what's going on in these books, let's talk about the similarities between the two and the differences. So first and foremost, one that I did not expect at all was the treatment of 40-year-old women. Now, both of these books feature 40-year-old women. Carnosaur doesn't know how to write women, and like is this is basically Jurassic Park for people who have issues with women, because there's like a 40-year-old in this, and like he like and Harry Adam Knight, which is a pseudonym for John Brosnan, writes about a 40-year-old woman like they're like an old crone. Like, I don't understand. Like, I don't think he has ever seen a 40-year-old woman in his life. And we're going to talk about some of the heavy sexism in this book. And you compare it to this book, and this book is like straight up, is like, you know what? 40-year-old women are the hottest. Because like they literally have a point in this book where like the main character, so this is actually told in first person, which is kind of interesting. And the main character goes like, my lover was at the prime of her life, 40 years old. And I was like, oh, that's kind of cool, because, you know, usually when men write about women, there's a pointed reference to like some shittiness as women age. They're not really allowed to age the way that we allow men to age, and you especially see that in Hollywood. And it was just very funny because this is basically what Hollywood tells you about women who age, and like this is the reality of women who get past the age of 40. It's not that different. It's just you know, it's the prime of their life. They're still at the prime of their life. They're like 40. 40 is not that old, and this book thinks that 40 is older than the dinosaurs. So first and foremost, there's that. Two, this book is exactly what it appears to be. This book is not. This book is taking the tropes of the giant fish book and luring you in with that, and then delivering something very, very different. And because this book is exactly how it appears to be, the pacing, super quick. So as you can see, super short little book, and it flies by. The pacing in this book is super fast paced, and the pacing in this one is a lot slower because it's a lot larger of a book, and it's also going for more than just being an animal attacks book. So let's break off from there. Talked about what they are, what they're about, and let's just talk about them individually. So starting off with Carnosaur. Now, I had heard about Carnosaur for ages. I had seen a whole bunch of people talk about Carnosaur. I've seen a lot of recommendations for Carnosaur over the years. Nobody who talks about Carnosaur talks about it as anything but trash. So this is supposed to be like a trashy, fun book, and that was exactly what I was hoping for. And I would say there's probably about 50% of this is good, fun trashiness, because the majority of this book is just dinosaur rampage. There's like this small British town, and there is this eccentric billionaire who has like a bunch of like exotic animals in his zoo. He wants even more exotic animals, so he clones dinosaurs. The dinosaurs escape and rampage throughout this small little town. And all of the dinosaur stuff was actually pretty damn good in this book. And I think that Harry Adam Knight and John Brosnan, who's his real name, I'm trying to figure out which one I'm going to call him. I'm just going to call him Harry Adam Knight for now. One of the things that's very cool is he is really good at writing action sequences, and he's really good at writing exciting chase sequences, exciting, like, you know, carnage, and all of the action set pieces, and the actual dinosaurness of this book is pretty damn well done. That's when we get to the issues with this book, in that this is a book that seems to have a lot of issues with women. There is some low-level misogyny, sometimes going to high-level misogyny through this book, in that it's one of those books that is clearly written by like a young dude who just hasn't talked to enough women in his life, and I think needs to go to therapy to get over some of his issues with women, because it kind of seeps through the page on this. I have not heard anyone talk about this when they're talking about this book, and I guess I'm not completely surprised, because when you go through the Goodreads of this book, and the Goodreads for this is fairly high, considering how, like, one, this is a pretty rare book, and it's an expensive book, so it's going to be more valued. Like, it's going to be more easily accessible coming up, because Valancourt is reissuing the book. But a lot of good reviews for this, like people like 4 stars and stuff like that, and I just happen to notice most of them appear to be men. And I think that makes some sense, because there is 2 women characters in this book that you get the most focused on, which is Jenny, who's a 23-year-old, and Miss Penward, who is a 40-year-old woman. And I don't think either female character is written that well, but I think Miss Penward gets the absolute worst treatment. She is a 40-year-old woman who, like, her husband is like a piece of shit, and like they don't have any romance anymore, and she's like lonely, so she like goes outside of the relationship to find like male companionship, and so she has like a lot of, like, you know, casual sex and stuff like that, but she is clearly looking for companionship. And like when she talks to like our main character, who is this reporter, who's this 26-year-old reporter who is sleeping with her in order to get access to to this zoo. So already our main character, whose name is David, is a piece of shit. David sucks so hard in this book. I hated him so much, and I just wanted him to get eaten by dinosaurs. He doesn't. Bitch survives. I hate him. But so he is like, oh, this woman is a nymphomaniac. They pass the word nymphomaniac a lot in this book, and it's pretty clearly that like that this is just like a lonely woman looking for some companionship and wants more than just sex. She literally says, "Hey, I want a relationship. I'm looking for somebody who can, like, you know, actually provide me with like love and stuff." And that's why she, like, our main thrust of this book happens because she falls in love with David, and David, like, tells her all these lies about how it's like, oh yeah, I'm gonna be great, and we're gonna go away, and we're gonna be together forever, and like completely uses and abuses this woman. And the thing is, I don't think that the book has any, like, I don't think that it's written with any type of sympathy for her character. To me, it just read like a man saying, like, yeah, she got what she deserved. She's broken the bonds of marriage. And it's just like the way that a lot of 80s horror writes about women, and just in culture in general, women's sexuality is like, oh my god, if a man is writing about it, it's going to be just completely stupid. Because, like, David Pascal is also sleeping around. Like, he's also having a ton of sex with, like, women who he's not with. Like, when a man does that, it's like there's no, like, you know, judgment towards it at all. It's just like, oh yeah, that's what he does. But suddenly, like, a 40-year-old woman does it, and it's like, oh goodness. Oh, call out the dinosaurs. We gotta stop this. Oh, goodness. And it's like, oh my goodness, just grow up. So, like, I just did not enjoy reading it, because I really did not like the treatment of that character at all. It was so bad. And nobody else has talked about it. And it's funny, because Jenny, the other character, she is treated a little bit better, but we still have moments where they try to, like, play off of sexism a little bit. Like, Jenny is supposed to be, like, a really good driver, and she's, like, really doing great. She's, like, saving the day. And then David's mad at her, so he goes, oh, you're such a woman driver. And it says, even though she was a much better driver than him, that was the only insult he could think of. And it was just like, all right, you're not really playing along with, like, sexism. You're just being sexist for sexist's sake. Like, and trying to be like, well, it's not true. And I'm like, yeah, bitch, you know what? All of sexism is not true. So you casually pointing that out for one scene in this super sexist book does not give you credence to continue. Anyway, so they both deserve better. I hope someone writes Carnosaur 2 where, like, David gets eaten and they just go off and have a nice relationship and live a life that's just happy. Or they can just be happy. Yeah, so this book is, a fun dinosaur book that's written with all the understanding of relationships of a 12-year-old boy. Next up is The Lake. The Lake has a terrible reputation online, and it's because of one very simple thing. It's not what the cover tells you it's going to be. Now, this is an interesting topic, I guess, just about books in general. I feel like from a very early age, one of the earliest sayings that I have ever learned, probably the first saying I ever learned was, don't judge a book on its cover. We have said that time and time again, but you know what? People don't do it. People just say that. People don't actually do that. Because this is not what it is, but this book is great. I thought this book was really, really good. Now, I will say, so the easiest comparison for it is there is a lot of things that I found similar to Jaws, the book, in this. So I would really say that, like, this is the kind of book that is for people who like Jaws the novel more than Jaws the film. In that there is a lot of detail about this town there. There's a lot of conspiracies going on. It's basically like an entire book that's kind of focused upon that, that mob subplot of the original Jaws. And it really kind of goes into this area and just this entire, like, lakeside community. And I absolutely love that stuff. That is, honest to God, my favorite parts about monster attack novels in general and monster stories in general, is taking very unique locations and then just kind of like spreading out and detailing everything about it. So I always enjoy getting invested into the towns these books are set into and getting an idea of what the scenario is, what the world is like. And this is from the perspective of a writer, and this is also written in first person. So this is the first person, so a novelist. And I know you're like, oh God, it's like Stephen King. Oh goodness, another story, a novel written from the perspective of a novelist. But what's great about this book is that, to me, our main character actually seemed like a novelist in that he gets his ass kicked a lot. Like, he's a guy who writes. He's not a fighter. He's not a mystery man. So what happens is there is some giant fish that start showing up in this lakeside community. And then there's also this mysterious, like, kind of fog that is starting to set in the lake, and the story is trying to figure out, like, oh, what is happening to this lake? Why are there giant fish showing up? We need to close this lake. And then, of course, you got the mayor who's like, no. But what's amazing about this is like you get all the tropes of Jaws, which is like a shitty sheriff. No, sorry, Brody, you're not a terrible sheriff, but in the book you're a sad sack, and the sheriff in this one is kind of a sad sack. You get the the scientist with the super fancy boat who's like kind of like exploring and trying to figure out what's going on, and you also get like the mayor who's like, oh, you can't close the lake, I've got the Labor Day weekend is coming up, it's the greatest bonanza of all time, oh, you can't do it. And so it sets up all of these things, and that's why you go, oh, this is just going to be Jaws but on a lake. And it's not. There's something else going on. And there is a bit of a twist to this book. The giant fish do appear, and there are some pretty great scenes with big old fishies. They are not the main focus of the book. And I think going into that will probably make you enjoy this book more than if you went in just thinking that it was going to be another version of Jaws. But it has all these elements, and then it kind of alters and twists them and like plays around with the formula that you are expecting. Primarily, there is no scene where the mayor goes, I was wrong, close to beaches. No. This book has the mayor become the primary antagonist of the story for the last half. he's a gun-toting. He loses his mind, and he gets like a bunch. He grabs a gun. He steals a sheriff's gun and is just rampaging through the town. So they're trying to stop the crisis, and there's this rampaging mayor who's just beating the shit out of everyone and got like a gun to people's heads, and it's madness, and it's really really fun in that it is just very much the last half of this book is paced super well, and I was like, oh, I kind of like some of these characters. Like, I want to see what happens. Like, I'm very invested in the end of this book, and I was very much, propelled forward by the kind of like twists and turns and the fact that this isn't what I was expecting. Now, I picked this up to read this, obviously, because I'm kind of on a giant monster kick lately, so I picked this up thinking there would be a giant monster. But the fact that there isn't doesn't make me mad. I've never really ascribed to this. So I think this dates back to like Halloween 3, which was like the third movie in the Halloween franchise. And people today are still mad it doesn't feature Michael Myers and has a totally different plot. To which I say, like, it's just a good movie. And like people will be like, oh, it'd be a good movie if it wasn't called Halloween. And I'd be like, then it's just a good movie. It doesn't matter the title. The title does not matter. It does not matter. If a good movie is a good movie, a good book is a good book. If I picked this up and it ended up being the greatest romance of all time, I would still be into it because it's a great book. A great book is a great book. I don't care what the cover. This cover is awesome and badass. I will still, pick this up and be like, damn, what an awesome cover. And just because that's not what this book is doesn't really matter. What matters is what's actually in the book. And I have never understood the people who get they've tricked me into buying this. And I'm like, it's some advertiser did. Don't blame the book. A good book is a good book. Now, if this book was bad, then yeah, that probably would add to the anger, right? If you pick this up and it's a bad version of like a romance or something, or it's like a twist on it and it's bad, then I'd be like, yeah, no, that's fair. Like, I could see you getting angry of it. But I thought this was a really good book, and I really liked this book. And just because it's not what it says it is, doesn't really impact me too much. I would love to know about how other people feel about this, because it seemed like half of the negative reviews of this was like, this isn't what I was expecting, and I'm like, yeah, dude, welcome to life. Life's not what you expect. It's different. It's weird. It's always something that you don't know. And that's my philosophy on books. Now, I did say that I think this book does really do a better job writing female characters. That being said, it still doesn't do like a great job doing female characters. Through the last act, the female, the lead female doesn't get to do as much as he does in the earlier sections. So there is some stuff where you're like, and there is some spousal abuse stuff that happens in this book near the end. So it's one of those things where I think that the 40-year-old woman in this is like pretty well developed, and I think she's a pretty interesting character, and I think there's like some fun back and forth with her and the larger story of what is going on in this town and how is she involved in this conspiracy and all that stuff. I think that's actually pretty darn good. But I think the last half of this book kind of undersells her character and doesn't give her as much to do. So it would have been fun to have her get her revenge on a certain character who treated her like shit. But we don't get anything like that. So you don't get too much catharsis. And also, the end of this book is not a super happy one. I'm not going to spoil it because I actually do think that it's worth picking up. But it's definitely an interesting plot in that, you really don't know if they're going to solve the problems of this book, and how they solve it and everything like that is pretty interesting. Now, again, I want to preface this. I really like this book, but I do want to preface a few things. One, very, very heavy talk about land deals. There's a lot of talk about land deals because, again, this entire story is really about a small town and the inner workings of a small town, which includes things like land deals, banking. We have a big thing about a new fancy power station that arrives. And with that, the power station is exploring new forms of technology and new forms of energy. So there's a lot of me talking about that, and there's some like stuff talking about like, oh, what was this land before we developed it, and like all of this backstory, which I guess for some people would probably not be what they want if they just wanted a pretty humdrum action horror book. But that's the kind of stuff I do really, really do like in books. So as long as you're okay with that and you do find yourself enjoying stuff like that, I would definitely really recommend The Lake by R. Karl Largent. Carnosaur, on the other hand, you don't really need to read it. I think I think you could probably skim through this if you're gonna read this. Get to the action sequences, read the fun action sequences, and skip all the character beats because they're really, really quite atrocious. But like I said, the action is still good. So if you're one of those people who just likes to read action, then cool, go ahead. Just be aware, the female characters are really written poorly. So that's a bummer. Have you read either of these books? What did you think? I have a feeling people are going to get mad at my review of Carnosaur, but it's my review. I do what I want. So yeah, I hope you guys are having a great day. No video this Friday. I will see you next Tuesday. Goodbye.